Hey guys, what's up? This is iPianos kicking off a new series. Starts with K. As you've probably just guessed, K for Kerbal Space Program. If you don't already know what it is, Kerbal Space Program is a space simulation game. You get to help these little guys, Kerbals, run their space program, kind of like NASA. And you start off with some basic rockets, and you work your way up to some really honking big rockets and fly out of their system and explore planets, and you can do all sorts of crazy stuff, and it's awesome. So, what am I going to be doing in this series? Well, if I click the Start Game button here and start a new game, you'll see there's three options. Sandbox, just messing around. Science Mode, which was the old career mode before they implemented this new career mode with a lot of features that were added later on in beta. I'm actually going to be playing in Sandbox mode, because there's a lot of videos for career mode already. What am I going to do in Sandbox mode? Well, if we look at the wiki, there is a community-developed campaign, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So, let's see what the intro says. From solid rocket launches to commercial spaceflight to nuclear exploration beyond the Kerbal system, this is the campaign for you. Sounds exciting already. This campaign is a large series of missions designed to present a logical sequence of space development at a pace matching historical spaceflight, modern missions, and future planned spaceflight. So basically, I'm going to go through these missions and they'll walk me through basic rockets all the way up to the really complicated rockets I was talking about. So this should be interesting. Rules of the game. Since this isn't actually implemented in the game, I have to try to follow these rules. Spaceflight is expensive and technology is progressive. Build the simplest and cheapest launch systems. Okay, this one's probably going to go out the window eventually. I'm not going to lie. I kind of suck at making these things cheap. I will try my best to make the rockets cheap and not over the top. However, it takes a long... You could spend hours on any given design trying to make it as cheap as possible, and I just don't want to do that. Number 2 is getting thrown out the window completely, because SAS modules don't even exist at all anymore. I believe they were removed late into the beta. What was the SAS system? Well, okay, it's still there, it's just not a module. Basically how it works is you can use the SAS system to stabilize your rocket or automatically point it towards specific things. Instead of having modules to do that, it's now implemented through your astronauts leveling up their piloting skill, which isn't implemented in Sandbox mode. You're just given complete access to all SAS commands. So I'm going to limit myself, until the middle of the Kerbal program, I'm going to limit myself to just stabilization. That's this onboard command module SAS. Then the SAS module, the basic one, gives me the ability to automatically point the rocket forward, backward, left, right, up, down, relative to the path of travel. And then the advanced module lets me point it towards a course change, or towards or away from something that I'm trying to target and move towards. That's how I'm going to define the rules. I don't know. Number 3, use the least advanced part you can. Deal. Number 4, I can end any flight at any point I want, unless there's a Kerbal on board. If there's a Kerbal on board and he gets stuck in space, I have to leave him there, until I can rescue him later on. And finally, these little italics parts talks about a mod called MechJab, which you can use to automate a lot of things. I'm not using it, so this is really not applicable to me. So then we've got our difficulty scale. 1 for beginner, all the way up to 10 out of 10 for level Scott Manley. If you don't already know who Scott Manley is, look him up on YouTube. Basically, if you need something done in this game and you don't know how to do it, you talk to Scott. He knows this game inside and out, better than the back of his own hand. On second thought, don't look him up, because if you look him up, then there's pretty much no reason for you to watch these videos at all. Where do I put myself? Well, I would say when I stopped playing this a while back, I was a level 6 or maybe even 7. At this point, I'm probably back down to 4 or 5, just from not having played for a while. So hopefully, I'll be able to work my way up to maybe 8 or 9, hopefully, by the end of all of these missions, and be able to complete almost all of them, I would hope. I've done a couple of them, but not many, so for the most part, these are all going to be new for me. So let's get started. Number 1, the Age of Rocketry. Introduction to the Age of Rocketry. Several thousand years ago, the Kirbys invented solid fuel rockets for their firework displays. Later, the Kerbals invented the K-2 rocket, capable of launching a relatively unguided ballistic missile on an island across the ocean, terrorizing the local farm. Robert Kerman then invented the liquid-fueled rocket, helped each group to maintain their progress towards the goal of a liquid-fueled two-stage rocket capable of reaching 70,000 meters, the beginning of space. Specifications: 1 to 2 hours. I'm hoping it'll take a lot less. Difficulty 1 out of 10. Hopefully I don't fail miserably at this. Hopefully. Alright, so missions, what do we got? We got 3 sections. Solid fueled rocketry. Launch an RT-10 solid fuel booster rocket. Must be unmanned. Must have a nose cone or fairings. So, let's get to work. I'm going to start up a new sandbox mode game. Starts with cave. And I'm going to go with this little hexagon flag because I'm a fan of that flag. Sandbox mode. Bam. So once this loads up, we're going to have our space center splayed out in front of us. There's a bunch of different buildings, and some of them don't even work in sandbox mode. They're not important. So let's take a look at what we got. First of all, this building, and this building don't work. This is the research facility. This is the mission control, where you can take contract missions. And this is administration, where you can have things that will modify how much money, as opposed to science, you get when you do missions. That doesn't matter in sandbox mode. Here we've got our astronaut complex, where I can hire more people. Our spaceplane hangar, where I can build a spaceplane. Vehicle assembly building, where I can build a rocket. Launch pad, obviously. And runway, also pretty obvious. And excuse me. And finally, we've got our tracking station here, where I can see missions that are currently in progress and switch between different missions. So, first off, we're going to launch a solid-fueled rocket with no people on it, unmanned. Normally, when you start off, you only have access to this Mark 1 command pod. However, that requires that you have a pilot inside of it to run, so I can't use that for this mission. I'm going to be using one of these pieces. These are all different kinds of satellites. Since I'm required to have a nose cone, I'm going to use the cube, because that one has a flat spot on top that I can put a nose cone on it. Next up, we need to grab our RT-10. Yeah, that's what it was, right? Where is that? These are not that. These are the engines. There we go. The RT-10 Hammer solid fuel booster. And that goes right on there. And then we stick a nose cone right on the top. Aerodynamics. There we go. Nose cone on top. And I'm just going to adjust this so that the satellite is kind of hidden right in the middle. There we go. Pinky little rocket. Let's see how this thing flies. So, here we are, sitting on the launch pad. Sitting on the launch pad. There we go. We've got our little rocket here, just kind of waiting to be launched. So I'm just going to pop this thing up. 3, 2, 1, launch. Down here we've got our nav bulb showing what the rocket's pointing at, and then little markers on there showing what direction we're traveling. That little green circle that traveled off screen that you may have just seen show the direction opposite of our travel. So as we start falling down, that becomes our direction of travel, and we're pointing horizontal to the direction of travel. There we go. As this is opposite our direction of travel. So the blue side is up. If this were pointing straight up and down, we'd be kind of on top of this dot, and that's opposite the direction we're traveling, which is down. So in a couple of seconds, we're just going to crash down onto the Earth. It'll be a beautiful explosion, and then nothing will be left anymore. All parts have a crash tolerance. We're currently traveling 70 meters per second. I believe these have a crash tolerance of like 6, so yeah, nothing really has one higher than 10. And there goes our first rocket. I believe that is mission 1 completed. Let's take a look at part 2 of solid fuel rocketry. We'll launch a 2-stage solid fueled rocket, also unmanned, but this time we have to retrieve it with a parachute. Alright, so let's go. We're going to modify this one, and in order to make a rocket 2-stage, you need to have something to jettison the bottom stage after you've launched it so that you can start the stage above it. So we're going to take a stack decoupler and stick it right on here, and then put another engine right underneath it. See if I can find the engine. There it is. And since we have to recover it, we're going to need a parachute on top. So instead of a nose cone, I'm going to take one of these parachutes and stick that right on top. And nope, I can't use that one. There's a less advanced one. This parachute, there we go. And definitely not aerodynamic, but that's okay. So now down here we've got our stages. Since we've got a couple of different moving parts on the rocket, we can rearrange them. First we want to launch the bottom rocket. Then we want to decouple it, and we actually want to launch the next one at the same time as dropping the bottom to kind of boost ourselves off of it. And last, we've got a parachute. And basically how that works is each time I hit the spacebar, it'll just trigger the next one, starting at the bottom, going up. So let's launch this and see what happens. This rocket's a bit taller, so the center of gravity is going to be closer to the bottom, which means it's going to probably not flip over like the last one did until I've jettisoned the bottom part. Generally, when you've got a rocket, you want your center of gravity to be kind of in the lower 3/4 of the rocket, or the lower fourth of the rocket. I believe that's what I've gotten from my experience. So let's knock this off. 3, 2, 1, launch. As this one's moving up, you're going to notice that about only at 250 meters per second, you start seeing air resistance lines again. And that's because we are still in the atmosphere. As you can see, as we go up, this little bar moves over, that kind of shows how much atmosphere there is with this. Generally, you want to not go fast enough to do something, because that means you're actually losing energy. However, since this is a solid fueled rocket, we can't really control that other than waiting for it to slow down a bit before activating the second stage of our rocket. So once we hit about 100 meters per second, I'll jettison that and start the second stage, and that'll get us back up to probably around 300 meters per second, unless it flips over again, which it probably will, because as soon as I jettison this, our center of gravity is going to move up to right about here, which is in the middle, almost in the top part of the rocket, which is bad, and that's going to cause it to flip over again. Just a few seconds. Start getting close to the ground, I'm going to pop the parachute, and that should slow us down a bit, down to probably about 100 meters per second, and then when we hit 500 meters above the ground, it'll pop, and that'll slow us down the rest of the way, so we can hopefully get a nice landing and not destroy the entire rocket, because that means I failed, if it does. So, as we're falling, things heat up. I believe that's what this means. I'm not entirely sure, but I think this green bar and flashing thing means that the piece heated up from atmospheric friction. This is also a mechanic that was added later on in the beta that I don't actually know how it works, but from what I've done, I believe that it is how much a piece is or isn't heated up / damaged from air friction. Alright, so we're about 2,500 meters. I'm going to pop the chute, and it's technically going through the rocket, which is weird, but the rocket's going to flip over. I guess the string technically doesn't have any mass, so therefore it can go through anything. Oh well, it works. So now we're down to about 80 meters per second, probably by the time it pops. And from there it'll be a very, very slow descent down to the ground. Sounds like the other piece crashed down. Like I said, as soon as we hit 500 meters, it should pop. Yep, there it goes. And then our speed's going to decrease very quickly from here. And we're down to a nice even 6.5 meters per second, which should be more than slow enough to get us to crash down, or not crash down. So at this point, I'm going to speed up physics because it takes a really long time to land when you're going this slow. Ooh. And we have touchdown. Perfect landing, stick landing. Recover the vessel. Mission complete. So what happens next in the age of rocketry? Looks like we have liquid-fueled rocketry. Step 1, launch an LVT-30 liquid-fueled rocket eastwards. Must be unmanned, must have a parachute, and land that thing in the ocean lest we worry the Kirbyettes. So, we're going to pop back into the vehicle assembly building and completely redesign our rocket. Off with some fuel, and next we're going to want to put on a fuel tank so that we can, power this liquid-fueled rocket. I'm going to go with this fuel tank, and let's see what our center of mass is, because now we kind of have a little more control. I want to get it closer to the bottom than the top. And then we want to stick on an engine, LVT-30 with Reliant liquid fuel. There we go, so our center of mass is closer to the bottom. And then, since this is a liquid-fueled rocket and we're going to be steering it eastwards, I need to have some fins. Otherwise, there's no way to control this thing. And I want it to be able to land where I want it to land. So, I'm going to grab some AVR8 winglets. And I think I'm going to put on 3. And that'll help our center of mass just a tad. Not too much left, but I think this will fly fine. Alright. So now that I'm using a liquid-fueled rocket, I'm actually able to control the amount of thrust coming out of this thing, instead of just being full force all the way until the gas is gone, like it was with the solid-fueled rockets. I can actually control this with my throttle down here. So I'm going to start throttle down because this is a pretty light rocket, and got to make sure the stages are in order. I'm probably going to forget that at some point. So eastwards is this way, towards the ocean. So that's the way I'm going to try to go shortly after my liftoff. So let's see how this thing goes. 3, 2, 1. Base control, slow launch, just like I wanted. And once I get up a bit, I'm going to start angling it towards the east. And hoping that it doesn't just flip over. You've got such small, light rockets like this, it's kind of hard to control. I'm going to turn on the SAS Stability Assist and try to keep it pointed in this direction. As I was saying before, I've got these 6 options, are what I'm going to call level 2 of the SAS, and this one and these 2 on the bottom I'm going to call level 3, because those are for pointing at very, very specific things, which, would be really useful to have. So, as we point towards the ocean, we're flying towards the ocean. I'm actually just going to cut the engine here, because we don't need to use up all the fuel, we just have to land in this ocean here. There's really no other stipulations than that. And we don't need to be using the SAS anymore to stabilize, because it really doesn't matter where we land. It's so graceful. It's going to have a nice swan dive, except I'm going to pop the parachute, so never mind. But I'm going to speed this up a bit. And we're taking a nice nosedive towards the ground. I'm just going to pop the chute here. You notice that I'm slowing down the speed every time I do an action or something. That's because when you speed things up, it's actually modifying the way the physics engine works, and because of the way computers work, with the fact that they have discrete time rather than continuous time like real life does, you can't technically model physics absolutely 100% perfectly, and looks like I need to pop the chute a little bit sooner. I'm going to launch that again, revert to launch, and do this one more time and splash it down so that I can recover it. Actually, do I have to? Land it in the ocean, lest you worry, must have a parachute. Technically, it doesn't say I have to recover it, so I'm not going to worry about that. time, I'm going to modify the parachute so that it'll pop out at 1,000 meters instead of 500. That'll give me a lot more time to crash down or slow down. And like I said, I forgot to modify the staging, so the parachute popped right away. That's not going to work very well. Alright, one more time. There we go. As I was saying before, because it's really hard to simulate real-time things with a computer because of the way computers work, you run into some issues with physics when you speed them up, which can result in funky things happening when you stage it. I know I've been running it at the extra fast speed, and I'll stage the parachute and it'll just cut off, like it'll get destroyed because of the way the physics engine works when you're moving it at faster than normal speed. So I always like to slow it down to normal speed before I do an action. That being said, you have to do that if you're in space that is above 70,000 meters, because when you're in space, speeding it up and slowing it down actually has a different effect. It doesn't keep the physics engine running. You'll completely stop all motion, and your only motion will be relative to the planet and like orbits and stuff, and you won't, the ship won't actually be like spinning around or anything because of the way that works. Now, satellite. That's the black box that matters, right? Okay, I'm going to call that mission complete. Let's see what we got next. Part 2. Launch a 2-stage liquid-fueled rocket, maintain 45 degrees eastwards after 10,000 meters and reach space. 70 kilometers. Man must have a parachute and a heat shield if applicable. I don't think it's applicable. And we have to enjoy the music once we reach 70,000 meters. If we don't enjoy the music, then we lose. So, let's do this. Honestly, this should be a fairly easy one to modify the rocket for. I think all I need to do is just add another stage, and I'm going to put a large fuel tank on the bottom, because I'm not exactly sure how much fuel I need to reach space, and I don't want to do this a bunch of times to try to figure it out. This is what I was talking about. I'm not going to run this like 20 times and try to figure out exactly how much fuel I need to get to space. It's going to be approximately this much. Good enough. I'm going to want more fins, because once we jettison the bottom, there's no fins, and I'm still going to need to steer, I think. Okay. I'm actually going to put on 2 parachutes, because I don't want it to break. I want my things to crash down. So, what's cheaper? Big parachute or 2 small parachutes? I'm going to use a small parachute. I'm going to use the side ones. Those are 400 each. Big parachute is 850 each. Small parachutes are cheaper. So I'm just going to put 2 of these on. I mean, I can put maybe 1 on each side. Now, this time I'm going to make sure my staging's right the first time. Bottom rocket, middle rocket, parachutes on top. And I'm going to pop that because that tends to work a little bit better. Okay, let's go to space. And I don't have a nose cone on the top. That's okay, that probably doesn't matter. These are just preliminary launches before the big one. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're aerodynamic or not, right? Okay. So I'm going to assume, I think I need about that much throttle to get off the ground. So let's try this out. 3, 2, 1. That's just barely enough. And I'm going to use the stability assist the entire time because I want to keep it going straight up as much as possible until we start. So on here on our nav ball, 45 degrees is going to be approximately at this line, or this number right here. So once we hit 10,000, we'll try to ignore it, and then I'll be there for the rest of the way. we get our map of the entire universe, and our rocket is right there, satellite. And this AP is the apoapsis, which is the highest point that our orbit, quote orbit, because we're not actually in orbit, will be. Currently, we're going to make it up to 25,000 meters, and that should be enough fuel to get us up to 7. Ooh, something's not right. I'm taking an uncontrolled spin. Why is that? That's because when we're up this high, fins don't do crap. Okay, so in order to stabilize this, I'm going to need to put on something called reaction wheels. So I'm just going to let this spin for a bit and then go back to the assembly. And in order to correct this spinning, I'm going to put on what used to be the SAS module, but is now just called reaction wheels. And I'm going to actually put a nose cone on the top because that looks a lot better. Reaction wheels, here we go, small inline reaction wheel. I'm just going to stick that right up the top. That will allow me to have some control over the rocket once we get to the point where there is no more atmosphere for the fins to have any effect. Offset. And actually, because I've got this, I don't really need fins on the top part of the rocket, so I'm going to take those off. Okay, one more try. By default, obviously you're traveling at time speed of 1, and we are launching Untitled Spacecraft. Woo! Alright, so we need to throttle up a little bit. This looks a little bit more like a missile than that's okay. So we've got our inline reaction wheel here, kind of hidden up in the nose cone. That's what the SAS module used to look like before we got rid of it and turned it into a reaction wheel. One more try with the fins. Not launch, with the fins. I want to go back to building. More fins. Attempt number 3 of Untitled Spacecraft. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. And I put the fins at an offset this time. Why? Because I felt like, honestly, it doesn't matter. I don't think. Hopefully not. We'll find out once we get to 10,000 meters. this happens, and we'll watch the nav ball to see if it goes into a tailspin. So here's our lovely planet, Kerbin. Space Center is located on this little peninsula right here, this little lighter spot. And as we zoom out, we see Kerbin has a moon, and actually a second moon. And then if we go even further, we see that it's one of a number of planets in the Kerbal system. And I believe I'll be visiting multiple of these planets throughout the course of the missions in this campaign. And of course, each of those planets has a bunch of their own moons, and we're getting high enough that I can cut the engine now. Oh yeah, that's going to get well above the target of 70,000 meters. So I went overboard on the fuel a little bit. Oh well. I kind of needed it to be tall so that I would have stability. So now, we just kind of wait till we hit 70,000 meters so that we can enjoy the music. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Music. Okay, enough enjoying the music. Time to bring this thing back down. So now we're in space, we can speed this up a lot more because orbital paths are a little bit different than in atmosphere physics. And as we re-enter the atmosphere, normal physics take over, and I can't speed up as much. Alright, that's gonna go into a nosedive, hopefully. Or, just a random spin. One of the two, whatever. Ooh, that looks interesting. And we've got our re-entry. Kind of a rough trip. And once we get back to an actual atmosphere, the spins will take over and we'll just go straight down. That works for me. And I'm actually going to adjust these. Nope, they're already adjusted 2,000. Good, I did that already. I couldn't remember. Alright. Time to pop the chutes. I can't pop the chutes because I'm out of electricity. You can't use a battery, or you can't use a satellite if you don't have electricity. Well, I don't think recovery was an option, was a requirement on this mission, just to have parachutes on it, so, oh well. Next time I'll make sure to throw in a battery for the K2 rocket, because I believe that's the last part of the age of rocketry. And obviously I could do this with parachutes and land it normally. Back to vehicle assembly. Alright, so let's see what we got for part number 3. Those pesky Kerbins. Launch an LVT-30 liquid-fueled rocket and control its re-entry point. Missile must go above 70 kilometers. Missile must land near a pre-selected island of your choosing. I don't need a parachute, so I don't even think I'm supposed to try to land this one. So we'll see what I got. Also, it calls it a missile. So honestly, I feel like this is just going to work for that one. I kind of do this one. Or rather, I opened up the last mission, and now I already have the K2 missile. Oh well. I'll do the re-entry this time. Controlled re-entry, that is. And I definitely need to have reaction wheels for this. Possibly could have gotten away with none for the last part. It would have been difficult, but I maybe could have done it, but definitely required in order to do a controlled re-entry, because you have to adjust your trajectory while you're in space, which means there is no air at all. So, let's launch this. 3, 2, 1. Wait. I need to pick an island. I'm going to try to land it near this island, this little one right here. That's where I'm going to try to land. Okay, now. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Alright, so now that we're set to go well above 70,000 and exit the atmosphere, I'm going to start planning my the rest of my trajectory to land near this little island. The best place to modify your trajectory is right at the top or bottom of your orbit. Since we don't have a bottom, it's going to be at the top. And I can use this little maneuver tool to plan out what happens if I fire my engines in this direction or in this direction. And it looks like I want to go this way a bit. There we go. And that looks like it'll land us right on the island. However, if I actually do that, it's going to land it right about here in the ocean, because this line does not account for atmospheric drag. So if I want to hit the island, I want to actually over-target a little bit. Either way, I'm going to land close to it. So now the next part of the maneuver. You see here there's this little gauge showing how much delta V I need in order to complete this maneuver. And this little blue arrow appears on my dash. And that points to the the maneuver trajectory. So here I've got a SAS command which would automatically point me to that. I'm not going to use that. And in 42 seconds, I'm just going to fire my engines full force towards this. Now, technically, the calculations done here are for if there's an instantaneous change in velocity, which is completely unrealistic. That never happens. So in reality, I need to kind of spread it out so that half of the burn is done before, half of the burn is done after. So I'm going to start firing at about 7 seconds to the node, and since it's an estimated burn time of 14, that should get about half before, half after, and land me on that. Why is this not going? I don't have any electricity because I forgot to put battery on. One more time, launching my K2 rocket. 3, 2, 1. Alright, once again, I'm getting ready to do my burn in order to adjust my trajectory, but this time I actually have battery power left, as opposed to just having the, however much energy there was on board with the satellite, very small amount, which is being, there we go, 5 electricity. I now have 105 electricity, so I think I'm good there. And, time to do the burn. Fire. And as you can see, as I fire more delta velocity, this pump goes down, track adjusts slightly, and you want to kind of end this towards the bottom. Let's take a map. There's our current trajectory. So let's point it back a little bit more this way. There we go. That should land us right about on the island or just behind it. So now, since we want to re-enter this like a missile, I'm going to try to keep this pointed at our path of travel the entire entry. Here we go, making our descent. And this thing's just a missile. It's going to crash. It's going to hardcore crash. Should be interesting. Got a tiny bit of fuel left. I'm just going to use that. There we go. And it looks like we are right on course for a black hole. No, just kidding. For the island. And Kerbal Space Center's way back there. You can almost no longer see it. You probably won't be able to on the video. I can just barely see it though. And we've got a wonderful water tile pattern here underneath us. And the island coming up very quickly that we're just gonna crash right into or next to. Oh, there we go. That's the air. Ooh, I guess I can't keep this under control. I'm just gonna let it do what it does then, and we'll see how it lands. Re-entering the atmosphere does goofy things. Alright, we are pointed mostly backwards, it looks like. I'm actually going to attempt to adjust that. No, yes. It doesn't appear to want to let me adjust that. Oh well, we can crash down backwards, that's fine. I mean, I can make it spin. Oh, hey, that actually kind of helps a little bit. Oh, hey. Okay, I guess I'm pointed down now. That works. Can I adjust my trajectory? I can. I can use the fins to point to make it go a different way. Okay. Well, oh well. I don't think I can actually land it on the island this way. It doesn't really afford that much control over the rocket. I'm just going to let it crash down in the ocean. And as you can see, my trajectory shortened considerably once I hit the atmosphere. I lost a lot of speed and I'm actually not even going to hit the island, which is a shame because it's fun to hit the island. Oh well. Crash down in just a few seconds. Kasploosh. Age of Rocketry. Thanks for watching, guys. Next video, I guess, is... I should not have clicked that. Next video up, I'm going to be tackling the space race. First satellite, first man in space, first man in orbit. Sounds like a lot of fun. See you guys then.